that. So fond memories of some really stalwart people in my time, people who were here as faculty members, and a wonderful environment in those days, even though the politics sometimes was a little bit too much. But nonetheless, a very wonderful experience of 5 years. And then I left Jadavpur. I went to the US to finish my PhD. And ever since then, from 1989 onwards, I've been outside India. So initially in the US for a long time, then in New Zealand, then in England, and now in Australia for almost 17 years. So this has been my journey, but the journey started in a big way out here. So I'm delighted to come back. So whenever JUIR calls me, I don't say no. Although today, to be honest with you, I would have felt a little bit more welcome if some senior people had shown up, taken the trouble to at least come. But you know, in these days, I guess that is asking too much of people. So people have their own way of doing it. I kind of tongue-in-cheek wrote back to him saying, yeah, it's a wonderful write-up, but a very hyped-up one. So I hope I can do justice, or even 10% justice to what they have said about me. So I'll start by saying that whatever I say today, I don't have a magic wand in my hand that I can give you 3 or 4 tips or ideas that will suddenly transform you into prolific publishers, publishing at the international level. I don't have such skills. I don't have that kind of knowledge. What I would share with you, and I would like to keep my presentation relatively short so that you have more time to ask me questions, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. What I thought I should do is, to start off with, I will talk to you about the business of international publishing, because those of you who are beginning to now get to the point when you are thinking of journals, you're thinking of publishing, you probably have heard from your professors, Scopus Index, this, that. So you need to understand the game of international publishing, because if you understand the game, then you can play it better. Number one. Number two, there are certain things which I feel as a scholar or as an upcoming scholar, because how many of you are PhD students? Just a few. Most are master students, right? Anybody intending to study further, go to the research level, do PhD and stuff? How many of you? Okay. So it's a good thing to know that when you are starting to become an academic, and especially if you're trying to, crash into the international publishing market, there are certain expectations that editors would have. Not necessarily in my journal, and I'll talk about my journal as well, but generally international journal editors, there are certain things they would expect from you. So you need to be aware that these are the things that they would expect. Nobody will teach you these things. You'll learn it the hard way. And the third thing that we can talk about are certain problems which, as an editor of an international journal, I'm beginning to face, particularly from India. So, because it's an Indian audience, I have no hesitation in saying that these problems that I'm encountering now are mostly coming from India. So I don't want you to contribute to those problems if you can. So these 3 things I'll talk about. So let's start with the journal publishing business. International journal publishing is an extremely competitive game. Very competitive. Not so much at the top end. So if you're talking about American Political Science Review, you're talking about international security, you're talking about strategic studies, you're talking about world international organization, world politics. If you're talking about those journals which are in the sort of A-star bracket, how many of you know the Scimago journal ranking in international relations or political science? Anybody knows what I'm talking about? SJR. So if you Google it, you will find Scimago, SCIMAGO, Scimago journal rankings. So this is called SJR. And Scimago takes data from various sources and they rank international journals or journals in political science IR into 4 categories. So these 4 categories are Q1, which is the absolute top, then Q2, then Q3, and then Q4. Now those journals which are Q1 and at the top of the pyramid in a sense, those journals play a completely different game. So to give you an example, Strategic Studies, which is published out of the Mershon Center at the University, Ohio State University, they receive, it's a generalized journal on security. So anything on security you can send to Strategic Studies. They receive roughly 3,000 submissions in an academic year. In a given year, about 300 submissions come to them. How many do they publish? 30 out of 3,000. So what is the publication rate? 1%. 1% publication rate out of 3,000 submissions, right? At the editorial level, so when a journal receives the submission, now with most international journals, the articles are processed by the admin staff and they are placed on the editor-in-chief's portal. So if I log into my journal and I want to see how many journals, আমি একটা paper complete করে, I asked a few of my colleagues to read it. So this was about ethnic bargaining, ethnic peace process, etc. My own sense was that I had done it fairly well. আমি ethnic politics নিয়ে অনেক কাজ করেছি, so I knew the literature fairly well. So I was a bit confident that maybe this paper I should send it to a Q1 journal, especially that is star level, when at the top end of the game. And I have nothing to lose. Let me see, let me take a chance. So I sent it to Strategic Studies, যেটা Ohio State University থেকে বেরোয়, Mershon Center, Ohio. তো গেল পেপারটা। So online submission, you can track যে কি হচ্ছে পেপারটা। আমি দেখলাম পেপারটা সাবমিট হয়েছে, ওকে। আমি দেখলাম it's under editorial processing, তার মানে editor বা associate, when he did look at it, he said, he's given me recognition. Or if that idea is so strong in the paper, but ওটার উপরই পেপারটা based, you should give him authorship. And then between you and him, you sort out who will be the first author, who will be the second author. So that's usually the protocol. But golden rule is, if it's not yours, citing. ওই যে বললাম তুমি ছাতাটা নিয়ে গেছো, তুমি জানো এটা আমার ছাতা, বাট অ্যাটলিস্ট তুমি এটা জানো যে এটা তোমার ছাতা না, তুমি তো জানো। ওইটাই রুলটা অ্যাপ্লাই করে ইন সাইটেশন, যে আই নো দিস ইজ নট মাইন, দিস ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ওয়াজ নট মাইন, দিস আইডিয়া ওয়াজ নট মাইন, সো দেয়ারফর আই নিড টু